telling me what you do.
Well, so I work for a managed service provider out of the New England area. And a managed service provider is pretty much an IT company that provides IT services outsourced to companies in the local area. So we do everything from managing a network infrastructure to, setting up servers for clients and making sure that their environments are working as healthily as possible. We do everything from security to compliance just down to the nitty-gritty of the service desks. If anyone calls us up, we'll be able to help them out on their computers.
So you're all the way from Germany?
No.
Well, I guess
I've never actually been there before myself.
So tell me a little about what we're looking at right here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom up a little bit. Why are you dressed up in a German uniform?
Well, the way I see it is somebody has to be the bad guy. At least when you're the bad guy in World War II, you got a cool looking uniform.
Oh, there you go. So this is actually Conneaut, Ohio, and they do this every year. How many years have you been doing this?
I started up doing this in 2019. So this will be I skipped 2 years, but one because of COVID.
Yeah.
Just last year I didn't want to go, but this will be my 4th year doing it.
If you guys haven't been out here, this is Conneaut, Ohio. They do this every August for 3 days. They actually do a reenactment of the Normandy invasion. There's German troops, obviously, but Americans, British, the French resistance. It is really, really cool experience. You really got to give it a shot. So welcome to Critical Insights out here in Conneaut, Ohio. I've got Joey here, and we're going to go through the process and kind of explain a little bit about RTOs and RPOs, which is kind of cool for what he does. He's an MSP. He goes through the process of onboarding people, trying to figure out the technology and get things set up so he gets it to work in his environment. So when we're talking about the idea of trying to figure out RTOs, when you're talking about recovery times, and the terms real quick, recovery time objective and recovery point objective. Recovery time, how long does it take to get there? And once you get there, what point can you be? For example, if you're backing up your data at midnight every night, your recovery point is 24 hours.
Exactly.
Right?
And of course, if you have incremental backups that go on throughout the day, maybe you have 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. A lot of times our companies choose 4 hours just because they don't want their servers to get bogged down. It's a matter of time. You could make a lot of changes to files within that amount of time. And if you, for some reason, get compromised, your whole environment goes down, or you get ransomware that wrecks your whole data set, you're out of a lot of money in just those 4 hours, especially if you're a big, defense industry, defense contractor.
Right.
You'll miss out on a lot of data. You'll miss out on a lot of time spent. And if for some reason that data is terabytes of data, not only do you have to worry about that, that recovery increment, you have to worry about backing up the whole thing, or not backing up, restoring the whole thing and getting it back onto the servers. And that can take some time.
Yeah,
that costs money, a lot of money.
Absolutely. So when you're thinking about recovery time, that's part of the idea of trying to figure out how long does it take to recover. So you talked about something that we talked about last week around the idea of recovery and being able to figure out, is the cloud the right place to put it, or is it on-prem? It really depends on that particular data. And whether you're sitting there trying to figure out what is the critical stuff that needs to be recovered now and what can wait. In other words, the idea of tiering of the data. Mm-hmm. So you're going through that process trying to figure out what's important and what's not. So when you're creating those recovery points or recovery times, you're saying I'm going to do it every half hour, every hour. You're going to use snapshots. You're going through the process of trying to protect that data any way that you can.
Yeah, and it's always up to what the client actually wants to protect.
So there's a point where you protect the servers itself and then you protect the data itself. You actually create your RTOs and RPOs based on the infrastructure. If it's the servers, you can handle those differently, because if you can go through the process of recovering those, you don't really care about that because you can always rebuild a server, especially in a virtual world. Or you go through the process of protecting your data. So when you're going through the idea of snapshots or trying to create backups or creating tapes and copying the data up into the cloud, that's where you're trying to create that RTO. How long does it take between different points? So an example of a 24-hour scenario, you run into an issue. If I do a snapshot or I take a picture at midnight every night, and if something happened at 11:59 the next day, you lose 23 hours and 59 minutes of data. So that's called the recovery point. What can you recover? How long does it take to get the data back into? And at what point will you get to once you recover that data? So your idea of backing up the data every 2 hours means I have a recovery point of 2 hours. Or in the case of ITs, we actually say, we recommend our SLA saying that we're going to give you 4 hours, but I'm going to do it every 2 hours because I want to make sure I cover my butt. That's interesting. One of the things you're talking about is what latency, right? Mm-hmm. How long does it take to get stuff? How to pull it off, how to put it in. and how can the servers handle it. But again, that goes to the idea of tiering the data, figuring out what's important, what's not.
That's the role of the project engineers, like myself and my colleagues. We have to determine whether or not a server can actually handle a cloud backup or if we need to do it on premises. So
makes absolute sense.
Yep.
So one of the things we're going to be talking about is the idea, the next one we're talking about is really about the idea of latency versus bandwidth. A lot of people, when you're talking about the idea of bandwidth, you're thinking about the cable companies, I got a gig and stuff like that, but then there's another part in latency. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's going to directly relate it to what Joey and I were just talking about. So again, my name is Paul Danis, and this is Joey.
Nice to meet you.
And I wish you well from Conneaut, Ohio. Have a wonderful day, and I will be talking to you again soon.
Thank you.